Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. My name is Nimesh Radia, and I'm your host. I always love starting this podcast by saying thank you. I feel so very blessed with this podcast and all the people it reaches. My objective when I started it was to simplify spirituality and guide people on their journey. And with all the messages I get, clearly it's getting to the right people. I get so many messages that say people find this podcast when they needed it most, and that just lifts my heart. It's kind of our way of giving back whatever knowledge we have. So yeah, I love it. Thank you. Thank you for everybody that's listened, everyone that's supported, everyone that's helped. I am, just a quick intro, I'm an Akashic record reader, Akashic trainer, podcast host, podcast creator, as well as a spiritual coach and mentor. And I love the fact that I get to guide people to shine their light, to release the programming, to truly be their authentic selves. And I do that through Akashic Records, through the mentorship program, through this podcast. And I love the fact I get to do that. This podcast wouldn't be where it is without my beautiful co-host. So I'd love for Stacey to introduce herself. So introducing the amazing, the stunning, the healer extraordinaire, and published author Stacey Brown. Stacey, over to you.
Thanks, buddy. It's good to be here. I'm excited for this episode. My name is Stacey. I'm an intuitive. I do readings for people from around the world. I'm also an Akashic record reader, a spiritual coach and mentor, podcast co-host, and a recently published author. My book, Journey to Soul Center, Discovering the Gift of Surrender, is available on Amazon and Audible. I'm excited for what's ahead in this hour.
Yeah, looking forward to it too. So there's also, as I mentioned on this podcast, I get the opportunity to interview some amazing guests. And today's kind of an extra special because I get to interview a guest that we've also been mentoring for a while and who's shining a beautiful light. This is a follow-up episode, but I'll talk more about that in a second. Melissa, I'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Melissa Bohn. I live in Colorado. I was born and raised Mormon. I actually stepped away this year, so that's been a journey that we're going to talk about. I'm married. I have 4 children. I'm an artist. Focusing on ceramics. I am also an author. I wrote a book on how to massage your baby after being a massage therapist as a career. I shifted into teaching parents how to take care of their kids. So I have many different passions, and I'm just really excited to be here.
Thank you, Stace. Thank you, Melissa. So this is, as I said, this is a follow-up episode. We recorded another episode, which I released a few days ago, where both Stace and Melissa talked about Mormonism and the impact on religious programming from their childhood and kind of how it's kind of affected them as adults. Today, as a follow-up episode, is really going to focus around their spiritual awakening, releasing the religious programming to truly allowing them to be authentically themselves and the journey that they're on. Everything's always work in progress, right? And but it's, so many people I feel like are focused on releasing their programming to become authentic. For me, religion is all about kind of rules and boundaries. And I'm not saying it's not needed, but spirituality for me is all about the soul journey and, kind of releasing all, not just religious programming, but parental, societal, whatever programming you've had to truly release those layers to become authentic. And that for me is what the spiritual journey is about. And that's the focus of this, of this episode. So you can go ahead and listen to the previous episode if you want to kind of go and get the foundation for this episode. But our intention is for also this episode to stand alone and be focused on the spiritual side of the journey when you kind of release the programming to become authentic and the impact it has. So, yeah, just as intros, Melissa and Stacey, I'd love for you to talk about kind of your feelings after recording the last episode and kind of this conversation around the spiritual awakening part of the journey. What's your feelings after we recorded the last episode a few days ago? Let's start with you.
Yeah, I first want to point out that I really appreciate you defining spirituality as releasing beliefs and patterns, because often we think of religion and spirituality as these opposites. But spirituality, I actually feel like all healing is spiritual healing. because I've been through physical healing with health issues and emotional healing and mental healing and religious trauma healing and all sorts of healing. And I feel like it's all been a part of my spiritual journey, because that programming didn't just come from religion or just come from my parents. It came from everywhere in my environment. I mean, we're told what type of food we're supposed to eat, and the information is always conflicting, right? Like we were lied to about what fat was in the 80s. Like we grew up, we have all these lies about what our bodies need and what our souls need. And so we're slowly releasing all of these things collectively. And so I call that the spiritual awakening that we're all going through, is collectively we're learning what doesn't serve and releasing it. And in my personal experience, religion has been a big part of it. And it's what I'm focusing on right now, but it's not the only thing that's adding to my spiritual growth in my journey. And since the last episode, it's been a few days, and I've had to stop myself from doubting, and the fear has come in a little bit of, oh no, did I offend somebody? Oh no, what is so-and-so going to think? And the truth of it is, though, that in the moment, I felt like I was speaking what resonated and what felt right in the moment. And I need to give myself that credit and trust that my journey is perfect, however it's laying out, even if I say something different later, that how I feel in the moment is a true expression of what I'm experiencing. So everything is just working out perfectly. And we've talked about divine timing, and it has been incredible throughout this whole process of working together, how we'll talk about something and then I'll process it during the week. And then the next time we meet up, it's this new epiphany. And I'll be frustrated that something is taking so long. And then we go back and realize, one, that things progress faster than I think they are. And two, that a certain event or a certain conversation needed to happen in order for me to have that epiphany that just happened in the right moment that I actually needed it. So everything is working out beautifully.
I love that. I love that. And just, I guess we should put a disclaimer. Religious programming, spiritual, I've never said there's anything against any religion, right? It's everybody has their own purpose and their own way, and whatever's right for you is right for you. And for me, religious gives you rules that you can live by if you choose to, whereas spiritual is more about the soul journey. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. And as you mentioned, there's so many other programming that we're releasing, and it's not. I don't want to make it about religion, and it's more about becoming authentic your soul. So I love that. And looking forward to getting deeper on your journey and just how much you've grown in the space that we've worked with you. It's just so proud of you. So Stace, to you the same question. How are you feeling since we recorded the last episode a few days ago, and any thoughts, epiphanies that have come through since?
I feel really good about what we're doing. I think that it's a different topic than what we've discussed on the podcast before. And I would say to Melissa, welcome to the world of podcasting. When we have a conversation and we just go with what we feel, that's what we do here. And that's the beauty of this space, is that as we evolve and grow and change, our ideas about what we feel about different things can evolve and change too. And for me, this isn't the first time I've spoken publicly about leaving the Mormon faith or about my journey through the Mormon faith. So to me, I'm already comfortable in this. I mean, Melissa and I come from very different stories, right? She's just left, and I left decades ago. So it's a very different space for me, but it feels good to be supporting someone who's going through their own process that I went through, because there are a lot of similarities, and like listening to Melissa's upbringing and all of that stuff, like there's a lot of similarities for us that I've been fascinated by, because when I've talked about Mormonism before publicly, I haven't had the experience of having someone with such a similar story.
Isn't that powerful? And also, kind of Melissa mentioned about how she felt after the episode. And, when you start speaking your truth, the old version of you, your ego, sometimes is going to step in and give you these doubts, right? And, staying the course and speaking your truth, as long as your intention and your heart is in the right place, if we trigger somebody, then actually maybe we're doing them a favor, because in that trigger, maybe there's an awakening, maybe there's a lesson. So I've worked a lot on that, because I know there's part of me that's an expander, and I know that sometimes I'm going to trigger people, and I've accepted that's part of my role. So anyone that's trying to speak the truth, I guess you're not meant to try and please everybody. You're not meant to say it in a way that everybody's going to agree with, because that's what makes us individual, right? Is our uniqueness. So and that's what I love about this podcast. We kind of try and cover all the diverse spiritual topics, to really guide. And it's our truth. We're not saying we're perfect. We're not saying we have all the answers. This is just our view, our opinion. If you agree, great. If you don't, okay. And kind of moving on to the kind of the spiritual aspect of releasing the religious programming. And Melissa, again, I'd love to start with you. When we started working with you, wow, it feels like lifetimes ago, but I think it's about 7 months. You're already on your spiritual journey, and you kind of felt a calling, you kind of feeling a shift, but in your heart, you knew you needed support. This podcast is kind of what guided you us, which I love that. But I'd love for you to talk about how you felt at the beginning of that journey, and kind of, you kind of mentioned that the way that things have been working is everything kind of shifted, and on a weekly basis, it's like we'd have a conversation, and then you'd get some sort of frustration, and then you get your breakthrough, and then by the time we have the next call, you've kind of gone through a journey in that week. And that's kind of, for me, that's what an awakening looks like. You've done so much of the pre-work. You've done what maybe it feels like when you start working with us, it's an accelerated journey. It is, but you've done the pre-work. You've been prepared. You've known that there's some sort of spiritual awakening happening inside you. You've been searching. And that's when you find a mentor, right? And so yeah, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the journey of the last 7 months. Kind of what's it been like for you to connect at a deeper level to your guides, to your spiritual journey? Anything you want to share this in your heart?
Yeah. I mean, I had done some work before. I'd been doing therapy for many, many years. And so I worked through a certain level of trauma and learning to accept myself as I am. But there was still a big piece missing. And I had been more interested in spiritual things. And it seemed like once I started, I think I heard something about the Akashic Records, and that's when the floodgates opened, and suddenly in my algorithm were all these other podcasts, right? And people and you guys. And so every time you did the Akashic Record readings, it just touched my heart. And I just knew that there was a lot of love, and I felt a lot of love coming through your messages, both of you. And then it almost wasn't a surprise when I learned that Stacey used to be a Mormon too, because I was like, of course I'm being led to these people. And it's one of those things that it felt like the right next step, to the extent that I doubted it. I'm like, it can't be like this obvious. And so then I came up with, oh, the money, oh, the time, oh, well, maybe I can just do this by myself. Those stories that you tell yourself. But I mean, it was the best decision I made, because really I am accountable every week, not just to you guys, but to myself. Right. And there have even been weeks when I didn't do the journaling, or I didn't do my say I love you in the mirror to myself, just these little things that we started with. And I felt so much shame and guilt because I didn't meet the expectation. And you guys are like, there's no expectation. This work is for you. Like, where are you now? Let's work with where you are now. And I'm not used to that living in a world where things aren't expected of me and I'm not supposed to perform in a certain way. Right. And that I have this natural inclination to just please the people I'm around and not cause a problem. Um, and there's been a tremendous amount of grace and compassion in this process. And my soul knew that's what I needed, and that has helped me immensely. So it's been, like I said, it feels in real time, like things are going slowly. But I've gone back to look at the documents that I filled out when I first started. And one, I was actually so impressed at how open my heart was then and how much I desired a shift. And if I'd been able to see now, I would have just been so proud of me, right? I'm so proud of her. And I think she would have been so proud of me. But also, if I would have jumped from that place to here within a week's time, it would have been a complete overload to my system. And the thing I was afraid of was destroying my family, and it probably would have, right? So these things take time and lots of really hard conversations, and with myself and with my husband and with family and friends and my children, and you know, all these experiences of actually living into this new expression of who I am, and that's shifting every week. And to have the support has been incredible, but also to now have this awareness of myself and the space that I'm taking up now and how I'm taking it up in a different way. I mean, I've grown into it. I didn't just step into it, I grew into it. And I mean, we'll go a lot more into it, but that's a brief summary of this experience.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And, it's interesting, the work that we do, the work that you kind of, when you're going through an awakening, the beginning part, a lot of it is all about you. It's all internal. It's all kind of helping you to understand who you are, to become authentic. And then really for me, the next part is how are you going to shine your light? And just, we'll go deeper into the journey, but it's just, the work of the, kind of guiding somebody through an awakening should come with a health warning, because the deeper you go, the more you get out of it. But it is so rewarding, and I love what we get to do. And Stace, from your perspective, kind of really the same question. What does releasing that religious programming and kind of becoming authentic, guiding yourself, but also guiding others? Any insights you want to share?
I mean, it's been such a long process for me to get to the space where I was able to release the religious indoctrination and embrace the way that I felt was right for me. And it took me a decade or more to really get to a space of understanding that there's not a right and a wrong and a good and a bad. It's just a different decision, a different way of being. And to get comfortable with myself in that space has been pretty significant. And it's, for me, I had mentors come into my life that guided me through the process. And I don't think I could have done it on my own. I really don't. I really feel like I needed a sounding board. I needed somebody to process things with. Like Melissa, I spent years in therapy, which was super helpful. But then I got to a space where I wanted to take action. I wanted to change the day-to-day. I wanted to understand what I thought, felt, and believed, not what someone was telling me to think, feel, or believe. And for me, it was a long process, but it was a beautiful process. And it's put me in a space now where I get to help people like Melissa. And I spent a lot of years feeling a lot of guilt and shame. And now I've reframed that. And now I'm in a space where I'm proud of who I am. And I'm proud of how I live my life. And I'm proud of the fact that I was strong enough to walk away. You know, it's not an easy process at all, as Melissa's explained. And I think it's the hardest part, is releasing that stuff so that you can make room for what you actually feel is right for you. And that process was tedious for me.
Yeah, I mean, both the way the way you guys describe it, you do need that inner strength, right? It's, you're going against, depending on your age, but years and years of programming, kind of expectation, not just your own expectation, but your family expectation. And then you add in the ancestral energy that comes into it. It does require that inner strength, right? But there's multiple factors. There's also a divine timing element to it. There is then you enter into the soul contracts in terms of, I do believe a lot of us that are in this space have had to go through things at a deeper level to allow us to guide others and almost create the path for others. And that's what, for me, for this podcast, is a lot of the time we are creating and kind of trying to inspire others that there is hope out there, right? There is, because if you listen to this podcast and you feel the weight of that religious programming, your expectations, maybe parental expectations, and not wanting to disappoint others, to go on this journey of self isn't selfish, but it feels selfish at times. And that's the, but I'll always say, who are you not to put yourself at the center of your world? But it is difficult. And obviously, as you start to focus on you, the people around you start to react.
Mm-hmm.
And there is just a feeling that you're disappointing someone.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, you come into this world as a soul, yes, you have people that you love you, but ultimately you're responsible for you. And I always love the line, are you willing to disappoint another to be true to yourself? And that is what I feel like we're all going through right now, is a push to truly be authentic, to activate our gifts, to feel the energy around us. Everybody's going through some sort of shift.
Mm-hmm.
And, going through this spiritual awakening. And it's like, I know a lot of people sometimes want a quick fix, tell me what I need to do and I'll be fixed. There's a journey of healing, right? There's no right or wrong, but you have to kind of, for me, it always starts in being honest with yourself. So, Melissa, I'm going to take you back a little bit in terms of when we began working together. I don't know. I mean, obviously it's hard sometimes to go back because you've changed and this version. But how much do you remember of that version of you? How did she feel as you kind of began this journey? I'm sure there was a bit of fear there and a bit of, am I sure I'm doing the right thing? And there's probably times you maybe just didn't want to turn up to a session because it was going to go deep. But yeah, I'd love for you to take us on a journey. Kind of, what did it feel like for you when you were kind of feeling overwhelmed, but also knowing that you had a mission on this planet? What was that feeling like? Do you remember? What can you share?
Well, it's the truth is, like, you can't really stop yourself when you know that there's something more. It hurts more to stay the same than it does to step into fear or unknowing or uncertainty. Because it is the truth. The thing is, there is a lot of criticism from people on social media. Like, the belief is that you leave the church because you're lazy or because you want to drink or because you did something that you're too guilty about. You don't want to repent for it, that like you're taking the easy way out, but it's not true at all. It is so much harder to stay when you're feeling conflicted. And I actually feel like people have one of two ways of leaving the church. Either they're fighting to find a way to stay, or they're trying to figure out how to leave. And they're both really hard, but like figuring out how to leave without burning all of your bridges, while taking care of yourself, while undoing all of these toxic thought patterns of self-denial and like obedience and eternal consequences for your choices. And then, but then knowing, like, I knew that I was deeply afraid of these things still, of that I'm doing the wrong thing and then I'm going to destroy my family. That was the big one. I'm going to let everyone down. I'm going to disappoint everybody. I'm not going to have any friends, because you step out and you don't have any friends. Nobody does understand you. And, um, and so there were all these fears, but then there's also this part of me that was just, I can't live like this any longer. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if I keep pretending, then I am at some point just going to really blow up my life. Like, I can't keep up like this. And if people want me to keep up like this, then I'm out of here. Like, I'm moving away. I'm getting the divorce. I'm done. I'm just like, there would have been an explosion point. And I felt that coming. And even when I brought this up with my husband, I was like, if I don't tell you this now, like in a couple years, like I can't tell you what's going to happen. I just felt that coming, and I didn't want that. I still wanted happiness. I still wanted satisfaction and fulfillment in my life. And I knew that I didn't have it. And so I knew something needed to change. I didn't know what, but opportunities came before me, like working with you guys, or even like moving into a new office space, like picking up more of my artwork, like things that helped to bring me more peace into my life. And I moved into those. And so just doing the next right thing felt like I was letting go of this anxiety and this worry little by little, and replacing it with meditation, journaling, self-discovery, connecting with my guides, um, building up my self-esteem and my sense of worth by exploring these things. And that's selfishness, right? Like, I don't have a problem getting lost serving people. Like, and that was how I was raised and what I was taught, like, just move into service. My issue is serving myself has always been a challenge. And so I'm going against so many of the patterns that I've been taught. And it did feel very selfish. And at times it still does feel selfish, but I've let go of the judgment of that, because I know I need this right now in order to move back into um, more soul motivated level of serving other people. I have to get in touch with that soul motivation. So
Powerful stuff. And it's just, it is interesting, right? It's like when you go through a spiritual awakening, when you are going through that process, your old world doesn't resonate anymore, right? The friends, the people, because they're part of that old world. There's nothing right or wrong, but they're not always going to resonate. This is why we talk a lot about here, finding a community to support you, for me, is really important, because as you shift into a rebirth, as you shift into new you, the old you and the friend circle isn't always going to resonate. And that's why, kind of recognizing that and being honest with yourself, for me, is an important part. So Stacey, the same question for you in terms of, even maybe going back to when we first started working with Melissa, but also your journey. Any insights that you want to share?
Well, I just think, like Melissa, it's just about doing the next right thing. And things fell into my lap in a weird way too, where I was soul searching and trying to figure out where to turn. And I had somebody come into my life who was like, you don't have to feel this way. You don't have to feel this way. There's a different way to do things. And I started doing one little thing here and there, building blocks, allowing myself to experience living a different way, being a different way. And one step at a time, I started navigating what worked for me, what that recipe looked like for me. Not that someone was telling me that I had to do, but allowing me to experiment with different things, different ways of being, and see what felt right. So it's like I didn't go through the exact same mentorship program that Melissa's going through, but the mentorship program was inspired by some of the things that I've been through and faced in my life, as have you, Nimesh. And so it's amazing to hear that, to hear Melissa sound more free is very rewarding to me, because it felt like, for me, like I was a prisoner, and now I get to help free other people. And that's a really beautiful space to be in.
I love that. I love that. I was just thinking, I wonder how Melissa would have felt if we'd asked her maybe 6 months ago, Melissa, why don't you come onto the podcast? I think we would have had a very different reaction. So it is beautiful when we guide people to really speak their truth and use their voice. I think it's and shine their
Stacey,
light.
you're talking about being free, and that's the other thing I felt like. I felt stuck, like I was a prisoner, in a prisoner in a cage of my own creation, and that was.
Oh, hold on, a prisoner in a cell of your own creation.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that powerful? Because how often do we feel like we have no control? And realizing that we created that prison, but there's power in that. It means that you can create a different reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, let's kind of move on to, what would your advice be? Because I do, a lot of people we speak to are going through something I speak to are going through some sort of rebirth, some sort of shift, some sort of crisis of identity. This journey can definitely feel lonely, like nobody's going, or nobody understands. So what would everything that you've learned on your journey, what would you advise people that kind of works, that has kind of helped you? Obviously, you can sign up for the mentorship program and work with me at Stace. But what advice would you have for someone that's feeling, that can relate to both of what you guys have said, but is feeling like they're talking about somebody else, they're not talking about me, they don't really understand my situation. I feel like I'm in prison that I haven't created. Kind of what would you advise them to do? What sort of things come to your heart that really has helped and guided you through this journey? And again, Melissa, I'll start with you.
Yeah. So if you're feeling like you're in this prison and someone else put you there, like you didn't have a choice and now you can't get out, is that what you mean?
Yeah, and also, what did you do in your journey to really that kind of accelerated you, that truly helped you to be this person you are today?
One thing that's been pivotal is letting go of this idea that there's a right and a wrong, that even that there's a right and a wrong and a truth, that any choice that I could make throughout the day is right or wrong, because that really can bring you into this obsessive micro analyzing of everything, single thing you do. And then the guilt always comes after. Either if you do something that you believe to be wrong, you're going to feel guilty and shameful. If you do something that you believe to be right, you're going to start to get in your head about it and maybe dismiss some other aspects of a situation and move into bypassing. And if we're always trying to do the right thing, who's the judge of what is right? And if we believe that there's a God up there, which I did believe that there's a God up there who's telling me, or not telling me, but told other people to tell me that they're the voices of what is right and wrong. And if I choose the right, then I'll be happy. If I choose the wrong, then I'm going to regret it. And that's this message that I'm getting indirectly. And that doesn't feel like love. That I had a really hard time believing that God loved me. The message was that Jesus came to earth to kind of save you from this God who's putting you through this terrible test. And he's going to advocate for you at the end and be like, no, this is my sister. She's good, right? And then God will believe Jesus that I'm good. But he's not going to believe me that I'm good because I didn't prove it because I'm not worthy enough. And so there's just this twisted conception of what makes me good enough in the eyes of God. And I will never be the judge of that. And letting go of that idea that only choosing right and good things that was a bar set by somebody else has really freed me because I can feel now like I have my own standard of what is acceptable to me, not even right, but how I choose I want to live and my own compass. And if I don't feel guilt, then I don't need to feel guilt because someone else tells me that I should. Like, we didn't come into this world feeling guilty. We came into this world feeling curious and interested and exploring. And then these ideas of guilt and shame and oppression and feeling stuck, they were taught to us as we grew up. But when Jesus said, be like the little children, then this is something that is taught in church, but we in churches all over in Christianity, but we don't live it. We aren't actually curious and exploring and accepting and loving as little children are. We instead are taught that as little children, we should be submissive and obedient and respectful and kind and all of these ideas of what good is. But I don't believe that was the original plan.
Mhm.
So that's what I would let go of.
Nice. I guess just to follow up, what tools have you used to kind of come to that kind of realization? What would you advise the listeners in terms of kind of truly becoming authentic? What do you use? What have you used, and what do you use on a regular basis that maybe can help our listeners if they're struggling right now? Again, Melissa, I just want to
Well,
finish that with you.
introspection. I mean, journaling, all of these questions you make me answer every week and journal about them forever and go deep on. Just looking within, right? And evaluating and also the pausing. I'm really upset about this because they did that to me. No, pause for a second and choose to respond instead of react. I'm really upset about this. So what is happening inside me? And what does this say about me and my idea of how I'm feeling small, or I'm feeling shut down, or like I don't have a voice, or right. And it's looking in and building that own awareness of, I mean, I'm guided by my emotions and I'm a rather emotional person. And so those are a flag for me of what is happening inside. And I, before, very easily blamed other people for my emotions. But now I'm realizing that it's actually wisdom coming to the surface. And then I can learn more about myself and my motivations and why I'm responding a way is because something deep inside isn't settled. So investigating these feelings, and I need to do those things alone, and I need to do them through meditation or prayer or talking to my guides or journaling. And some people maybe have to speak them out with another person, and that is actually part of my process. First I have to go within, and then I speak to someone, and then I go within again, and then things kind of sort out, and then the universe brings that same situation again. And then I kind of test out what I learned and like, oh yeah, okay, this actually is happening because I was just thinking about it. And now I have an opportunity to do something different that feels more authentic.
Mhm.
I love it. And it's I love your weekly process. It's like something frustrates you, and then we talk about it, and then you kind of like, okay, I need to sit with it. You'll meditate, you'll journal, then you have an epiphany. It's such a beautiful. It's really cool to see from the outside when somebody's kind of going through that circle and just kind of, and the way you talk about it, the questions we ask, the general prompts, they're all kind of designed because the first step is always awareness, right? Because we know sometimes we're in victim mode, i.e., there's a prison that we've created, there's no way out of it, we're in kind of that and there's no right or wrong, no judgment here, right? But those questions and going deep in who you are and understanding that everything is happening to you is part of what you manifested. It's what your soul agreed to experience in this lifetime. And the asking and going deep and being honest with yourself is always the first step, because then from there you become aware. And when you become aware, then you can do something about it. The next stage is always acceptance. And that's the journey I feel like you've gone on. You become aware of who you are. You've accepted who you are and, your journey. And now it's all about how loving yourself and shining your light. So it's just to kind of give you my insight in terms of why we ask you those deep journal prompts and why we ask you to go deep, because everything you need is inside you, the love, the joy, the answers. What a good mentor and a guide can do is guide you to those answers by asking you to go deep and helping you to understand that your deepest understanding of who you are comes from inside you. That helps you to release the programming, helps you to release the karma that you're holding on to and truly become authentic. So I love that. I love that. Stacey, the same question for you. Anyone that's kind of feeling like they're in their own prison, they're kind of struggling, they're what techniques and tools have you used to kind of shift through that? I mean, just in the 4 years I've known you, you've kind of had to go through so much. You've had to shift through so much. So, you're one of the strongest people I know. So not because of what you faced, but because of how you reacted to what you faced. So I'd love for any insights you have that you can share with our listeners. What would your advice be?
I absolutely think that writing has been such a big tool in my growth and expansion. Taking the time to journal about what I'm going through on days where I don't really feel like journaling, having a brief, list of the things that I'm grateful for, being in that space of gratitude, affirmations has been really powerful for me. And that's something that I've used throughout the years to process. And it's a great way, like Melissa was talking about, to practice the pause, right? When you don't really know how you want to react or respond to something, taking the time to write about it gives you a space to process on a deeper level. And it's been really powerful for me. I feel like my day-to-day habits have so much value in how I'm feeling about myself and how I'm showing up in the world that I am super intentional about what I do in a day and how I show up and how I use my time. And I think meditation is a big part of things as well. And everybody meditates in their own way. But it used to be that I had to be in a prayerful space with a structured prayer and a structured intention, asking for what I wanted. And that looks very different for me now. That process is more meditative, more thoughtful, a lot more intentional versus robotic. And I feel like all of these things have helped contribute to where I am right now. But yeah, I've gone through a lot of change in a significant amount of years now. And a lot of it is making sure that I'm good with myself. Am I good with how I'm showing up? Am I good with who I am showing up as? And making sure that that all is in alignment with where I am.
Powerful. Resonate so much with both of what you guys said. It's just, this spiritual journey does require some deep work. And I know sometimes, we want to bypass it, right? Give me some meditations, give me that self-care routine that you both guys talked about in terms of journaling, in terms of being honest with yourself, in terms of meditation. I'd also include things like time in nature, and that gives you a really strong, solid base. But doing that internal work and going deep on and being honest with yourself, right? Sometimes it's hard, sometimes we question why we chose to be on this planet. Sometimes we question, why would our soul pick this journey? Why did it pick such a difficult? I guess it's good to remind everyone that, we chose to release so much karma in this lifetime. We chose to release so much ancestral karma, which is why it does feel like a deep journey. It does feel like such a painful, why would we pick it? But know that, for me, the universe is never going to give you anything you can't handle. So go deep. If you're going through something, then sit with it, kind of journal about it. Knowing that this is just a phase, and this too shall pass, right? Whatever phase you're in, you're going to get through it. But doing that internal work and being honest with yourself and doing what these guys are suggesting in terms of journaling and going deep on who you are, for sure, look for a mentor and a guide if it makes sense. For me, anyone who we work with, including Melissa, it's a soul contract. We were meant to work together. We were meant to be on this podcast. We were meant to use our voice. Which means if you open yourself up, there is magic out there. There are people that can guide you. And I guess kind of moving on to the next part, when we're going through this spiritual journey, there is an impact to the people around us. They're a reflection of who we were. They're a reflection of our old self. And, your old self doesn't want to let go. And sometimes the people in your life are a reflection of your old self. And it doesn't mean you have to let everyone go. But it does mean that you truly kind of focus on who you are and what you want. But yeah, I'd be lying if I was saying that, this journey, I always wish it to be easy and grace, but sometimes it does feel like a roller coaster. And it does kind of feel lonely. It does feel, as look at the time right now, it's 4:44, and I love the numbers, but, I'd love for you guys to just talk more about how lonely this journey has been for you and the impact it's had on the people around you. And I'm going to give Melissa some time to think about it. So Stacey, I'll start with you.
I think any change or shift on a spiritual level, like something that is happening so significantly, can be very isolating. And I think it's a combination of it being something that you've got to face on your own. And I also believe when we're going through something so deep, we tend to pull away. We pull away from like the things that we know, the things that are familiar, because we're trying to figure out what we think, feel, and believe. And that can be a very private process. And I absolutely feel like it's been one of the most isolating, if not the most isolating thing I've ever been through, to navigate through that, because I have felt that I have to navigate it alone, which is so hard, because that's the last thing you want to do, is do the work independently. But I feel like in those times where I've really been facing a challenge spiritually, it tends to get very quiet, and I find myself turning inward.
And so a follow-up question to that, what's the impact to the people around you? So you go inward and you kind of realize that you're on this inward journey, and you kind of, what impact does it have to your loved ones and the people around you in your experience?
Gosh, I'm not really sure. Like, I'm sure it feels frustrating, right? Because they want access to you in the way they've always had access to you. And during that time of, insightfulness and introspection, you're closed off. So I would imagine to those that love me, it's probably frustrating.
Yeah, no, that's why I kind of wanted to go for you to. It's, if you're going through a shift and you're doing a lot of work on yourself, when people say to you things like you've changed, actually for me that's a compliment. And I know sometimes it's triggering, right? Oh my God, we want our loved ones to continue loving us, but actually, if you're going through a shift, you are changing.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe our external world wants us to stay the same because our ego doesn't want us to change, doesn't want us to go through the rebirth. So I wanted to ask that follow-up question. And Melissa, the same question for you as you've gone through your journey and as you continue, how lonely has it felt, and what's the impact been on those around you?
Yeah, the loneliness has been the hardest part. I felt lonely before because I faked it for a long time before leaving the church. And belonging was the most important thing to me. But in order to belong, I felt like I had to be someone I wasn't. Um, and since then, it's so I have had this romantic idea that it would be easier to just be a single person with no family and make a clean break and then just go through my cocoon and then emerge as the butterfly. I don't think that's actually what it's like. But there's a part of me that idealizes that situation in contrast to my situation because um, it seems like it would be easier to be actually alone than alone surrounded by all these people. Um, and feeling alone in my marriage. But even though we have a great connection and we love each other very much, there is this core that now I I don't want to make an inappropriate analogy, but it feels like a polyamorous relationship where I want to break up from the third party, but my husband's still deeply in love with them and wants them to still live in our home, right? Like I can't make a clean break. That's not possible. I have fallen out of love. In fact, I feel actually like it's painful. And so my husband, he really wants to share conference talks or spiritual experiences with me, or like we do share spiritual experiences. We have great discussions, but if they're based on Mormonism, I tend to check out, or I come back with some sort of skepticism or critical remark or some maybe inappropriate joke, and that hurts him. And it's hard for me not to say something that I'm thinking or how I feel about it, even if he says, I think you would really appreciate this quote from this feminist Mormon scholar. And then he'll share it because he's been thinking about how it might help me. But it actually, then I feel offended by it. And I'm like, ooh, that just like, that's kind of dirty. Like I feel like it's saying this and it's bypassing or something. And then it causes this separation that then we have to work even harder to get to find each other through. And that adds extra layers of pain, not only for me, but for him. And we both want to be held and witnessed in this pain that we're in. And it's hard to give it to each other. Right. And so we work through that weekly. We have things like that. And then we work through them, but then another thing always comes up. So it's disruptive. And like with my kids, I don't bring up a lot, even with my teenagers. My oldest doesn't think he'll go on a mission because usually boys go on a mission when they turn 18. And I'm fine with that. But my husband, he's a little less fun, but he would never pressure it. And part of me wonders if it's this journey that I'm going through that has actually maybe relaxed him a little bit, right, in regards to our kids. And I do feel like on the religion front in our family, it's a little less strict and stringent, and we're a little more relaxed. And I really appreciate that. And I've completely forgotten your question, Nims. What did you even ask?
No, no, you're answering it. It was just what's how lonely does it feel, and what's the impact,
Oh, I was
to
going
the
to
loved
say
ones around you.
too that I grew up LDS and my family, even though they're not all still, well, most of them are, we had a big family reunion this summer, and I have never felt more lonely with my family. And even though we have a big group, everyone is very fun and likes to have fun and laugh. I felt incredibly, incredibly lonely. And it was hard for me. And I came back and I talked to you guys. I'm like, this has been so, so painful to just not know who I am and how to belong, because I'm working on just being okay being alone or while I'm in these groups. And it is really difficult.
I mean, it's really interesting in terms of the shift, because we spend whatever time working on ourselves, and we kind of have come to terms and kind of accepted and fall in love with this. But our old world still exists, and it's interesting how the switch and kind of, because it is a rebirth, right? Everybody in our lives, the way I look at it is, we're the light at the center, and everyone else in our world is playing roles. So even when you're going through a spiritual awakening, the people in your life are playing roles. They're reminding you of who you were and who you're trying to be. And it's the kind of, and sometimes it is restrictive. I mean, I had a very different upbringing, right? I grew up I was born into the Hindu religion, which is more about, has a lot more fluidity, a lot more, rebirth, karma. And I have a very loving family, right? There's a big extended family. There's a lot of us, and there's a lot of love there. But again, on the spiritual side, there's not many people that understand that part. And I'm, at times, when I activated the healer in me, my first thing was I wanted to heal everybody. Let's do this. And it's the realization that everybody's on their own unique journey, and we're not here to fix anybody. And kind of being able to live in a space, in different spaces, and be your authentic yourself. I always think about it. How I do one thing is how I do everything, and it's kind of like living in those worlds. But I'd love for you to extend a little bit, because I'm going to maybe, but you living in a world right now where you talked about your husband and your kids still being in the Mormon faith and being in that world. I'm curious any more that you want to share about how that affects you. And, I feel like on your journey, you're allowing your kids and your husband to be who they are, because this is the thing. It's like, who are we to tell anybody they're in the wrong and they should be following this path and not? And I feel like you've done a really good job in kind of coexisting and allowing people to be. I feel inspired to ask you, what does that feel like?
Yeah, thank you. Because I want the exact same thing for my kids and my husband and for everybody that I want for myself. And that's not necessarily to be witnessed in my pain or held space for me. It's just, I want freedom to speak without being told I'm wrong or criticized or corrected or judged. I want to be uncensored. And there can be in some of these environments the fear that if I don't censor myself, then people are going to get upset. And I don't want that responsibility. I don't want that burden. I just want to feel free in my expression without others pushing it down. I mean, that's been my whole life, is feeling like I've had to filter everything that I've had to say, and just the feeling of being unfiltered. I don't even think it's in my personality to say anything that could bring civilizations to a crumble, right? I'm not going to actually do that much damage, but it always felt like I would. And I feel like this precious experience in this life being Melissa, I'll never get that again. And so I want to express all of her that I have that needs to be expressed. And it's always been sort of like, do I feel safe or not? And I never actually feel safe. And that isn't the bar that I want to keep looking for. Because whether it feels safe or not, does it feel right? Does it feel true? That's the bar that I'm searching for now. And that's what I want for my kids. I don't want them to, and really, my kids are like this. They say what they want when they want. And I feel like we've done a good job instilling this in them. And my husband is very much this way. He's not censored. I'm the only one. And so I felt this bitterness and this unfairness that I had to be the one to be a certain way to make everyone happy. But this was something I put on myself. This is something that I had adapted to. And it's not who I have to be.
Powerful, powerful. I'm conscious this is a longer episode, but there's a question I have to ask both of you that's in my heart is, a lot of this journey is about being potentially what we may call selfish, right? Prioritizing yourself. And I know I've had conversations with both of you. You both are moms to multiple kids. Kind of putting yourself first when you're a parent How hard is that? And any advice you have for our listeners in terms of what that journey looks like? Because for me, putting yourself first when you're kids or, when you've got loved ones that depend on you, for me, that's actually setting a really good example. But I get the conflict that goes on inside, right? It's that, for both of you, it was natural to put other people first. And I know that we all did actually went through a journey of realizing that it is important to put ourselves at the center of the world. So I'd love for you to kind of talk more about what does that feel like when you go to that shift of realizing that you need to put you at the center of your world, and what conflict does that cause? And Stacey, I'll start with you.
Well, it's so challenging because it goes against everything that we've been taught for our whole lives, right? So there's that conflict of like, this does not align with what I was raised to believe or how I've been living my life. With that being said, once you start making yourself a priority and reaping the benefits of it, you recognize why it's a priority and you make sure that you continue to make it a priority because you can see that it makes you a better partner, a better wife, a better mother, a better friend. It has been probably one of the hardest lessons for me to integrate and one of the most significantly life-changing at the same time.
Powerful. Melissa, the same question for you.
Yeah. This has been, it goes against everything that I know, or even as I identify as. My values are love and compassion and grace. And I give this so freely to everyone and to my children, particularly. And that will never stop. But the shift is me turning that on myself. Right. And so these things, a lot of parts of motherhood come unconsciously, where I nurture and I care and I protect and I guide and I take care of. Like, I don't have to think about those things. I don't have to make them the priority. But when I prioritize all these things for myself, like something like remembering to make myself lunch, right? And so I'm not cranky and angry later, but so I feel good, just making sure that I feel good when I prioritize my care and excuse myself when I need some time and come to my office, and I come home when I say I'm going to come home, not earlier because they call me begging me to come home. Those things are really, really hard. But but when I do that and I actually stick to the things that serve me, I always come through for my family. Like, that's not I don't forget about them. That doesn't happen. So, so it's the only difference is that I actually came through for me, and then I'm actually more in tune and more able and more patient. There's payoffs to that. It's a constant need to be vigilant, though. It just does not come naturally to think of myself first. So that's why that language of me coming first applies. It's not like I'm actually the most important person in the family, but it's when I think about my needs first, then everything else flows.
That's so powerful. When I think about my needs first, everything flows. That should be on a t-shirt, because it is really that, it's that, when we do put ourselves first, we set a great example. Our light becomes so much brighter. We can help so many more people, and everything is in flow. And when you don't put yourself first, there's a part of you, it's a conflict, right? There's a part of you that wants to be there for your kids and wants to put them first. But at the same time, from some of the things you've done before, when you do look after yourself and you do have self-care, your energy is different, and it's almost infectious. And, for both of you, I said that to you multiple times, it's like, I can feel when your energy is high and the impact that you're having on the people around you. It's beautiful to see. And, as we're closing out this episode, Melissa, I just want to say thank you to you for allowing us to guide you. I've seen how much you've grown and how deep you've gone. I've always felt that you've chosen to do that as a soul because you're meant to guide others. You going through the difficulties of understanding the program you had, to truly become authentic, kind of the journey around shining your light, around your relationship with money, around relationship with religion, the kind of ancestral healing that comes with Akashic records, kind of open your own records, and just the creativity and knowing that whatever you're here to create is part of your journey. I want to say thank you. Thank you for allowing us to guide you. Thank you for shining your light. Thank you for speaking your truth. I know you also have your own podcast that you've done a few episodes with. I'd love for you to share about that. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. And Stacey, before we close, anything you want to share with Melissa before we go to final thoughts?
Yeah, Melissa, it's been such a beautiful process to kind of relive some of my experience through you and to guide you on the journey to your healing. It has been a blessing to watch this journey unfold for you. And I'm really excited to see the next steps that you take and what impact you have, because I can feel it. You've changed your life, and that has a ripple effect on all of those around you. So thank you for letting me witness that. It's been a powerful thing to get to watch.
Wow, thanks, guys. I mean, it's been powerful to go through it with you. I mean, I've had friends, like deep friends along this journey, and like we're not even done. I mean, we're still going.
Yeah, 100%.
You list all those things, Nims, and I'm like, oh yeah, we did do that. We did go over those things, and I did release those things, and like thankfully I have all these documents, things we've written and worked on, and that I can look back on, and just I'm amazed at all that. I'm proud of myself, all the work I've been able to do and uncover. So
you should be. You should be. And that's the thing. Is like we're always so focused on who we are today, and so we should be, by the way. But sometimes you got to look back and be proud, and just take stock, right? And be proud of how much you've grown. And I really do feel like we pushed a lot this year, and taking that time for all our listeners, please do that. Please be kind to yourself and realize how much you've grown. Of course, there's still work to be done. I mean, we're still working with Melissa. There's still additional, so much. This anyone for me that says they're fully healed, I'll kind of always say sure, because I know things come up when they're ready to be released. So this spiritual awakening for me is a lifetime. We're going to get accelerated modes. We're going to get times and things are going to come up that we just going to push us to expand even further. And great, let's ride the roller coaster. When I first met Stacey, she tricked me onto a roller coaster. I had no idea that there was this crazy journey that we were going to go on, but we have. And this episode and the two that we recorded, I always knew there was going to be a lot there. And Melissa, I'm sure you're going to be back for another episode at some point soon. I'd love for our listeners to suggest anywhere that you want us to go in future episodes with the three of us, with any topics you want us to cover, also with the podcast overall. We'd love to hear from you, because I feel like there's so much more depth and things that we could have gone into. So yeah, please let us know. Please give us feedback. And you know what I'm going to ask, guys, as we close this episode out, I'd love for you to share any final insights and any general prompts that you have in your heart. Melissa, I'll start with you.
Okay, yeah, I have a journal prompt. So one thing that I tell my kids, especially my teenage boys, is to beware of certainty, because it seems like it's it's amazing. They know everything. It's so exciting. but when we put our knowing into a box of I know this, then we limit our any further understanding or perspective. And so once we get to the point where we say, I'm good, I know how to do that, that's where we need to check ourselves and say, oh, what else is there? Maybe talk to another person or get another perspective, read another book. That's where your ego or where some sort of limit has been set and you're resisting knowing or understanding more. And so, yeah, that's the journaling. What are your certainties? And who could you ask? Where could you go to learn another perspective or find something else out? And then I also wanted to share that, yes, my sister and I do have a podcast. We call it Sister Flames. And the reason we call it that is because in an Akashic reading, Stacey said that we are flames or twin flames for each other. And that is 1,000% true. And we have been side by side on this spiritual awakening for the last couple of years. And it's been incredible to have someone to send the reel to, right? The weird reel that no one else would know what that's talking about, and then talk about it and say, oh, you're thinking that too. Oh, you heard that too. Oh, what is this? Or you're experiencing this. And to feel so validated, just like with Stacey, I felt so validated in all of these things I've brought up. I'm like, I know this might sound weird. This might sound crazy, but this is what I think. And you're like, oh my gosh, I could have said the exact same thing. Yeah, it's not weird at all. It's normal. And how often are we just so certain that we're the only ones feeling something or going through an experience? And really, if we just open up, we'll discover that it's everywhere, that our people are out there experiencing and feeling the exact same things.
I love it. I love it. And so, Melissa, I'll include the link to your podcast in the show notes. But before we move to Stacey, any other areas we can help? I know you've got some pottery that you're creating, and I'm not sure, maybe share what area you live in if people are looking for that, and the book that you've written, right? I'd love for you to share about that.
You're encouraging me to promote myself. That's hard.
I know. Keeping you on the spot. Gotta
Yes.
keep you honest.
So my book, I actually have an app and a book and music that I produced for this infant massage program that I created while massaging my own children when they were babies. I worked full time, so I would come home and massage them. And this became our great bonding, was this time together. And I sang them songs. And eventually I went and I produced this music and a friend sang the songs. And I actually am quite proud of it. It's very beautiful. The program is called Playsage, Play Plus Massage, infant massage for babies. And it teaches parents how to massage their children while also engaging in music. And those touch and music together are powerful in stimulating not only brain connections, but a deep bonding, and also regulating the nervous system and actually in training them to match your own nervous system. So it's easier than if they're not sleeping, if they're crying, then you move into the music and the touch, and then it calms them faster. Like, there's so much data around how we can actually, when you put your baby's heart to your heartbeats synchronize. When you make eye contact, the heartbeat synchronizes. And so deepening this level of connection with your baby is so powerful. And there's so many other benefits to it too, but I'm just really proud of it and I love it. My company is Rub-a-Bug. So you can find me on Instagram, RUBABUG.
I love it. I'll include the links in the show notes. And Melissa, that sounds amazing. When we massage, our hands are portals. They're so healing, and you combine it with music. It touches the heart and the soul in ways that words cannot. So I can't believe I had to push you to remind people of that. But anyway, it's all good. It's all good. I feel it sounds amazing. So I'll definitely include that in the show notes. And
my pottery I sell in Colorado. I don't have an Etsy set up. I don't produce enough yet, but you can message me on my Instagram if you're really interested.
I love it. I love it. And it's important to know what your gifts are. And, with Melissa, for example, when she's creating something, and it doesn't matter whether it's the pottery, whether it's the books, that's when she comes alive. So for everyone that's listening, knowing when you do something, how it affects you and what makes you come alive is really what's important. I mean, the mentorship and what I get to do and kind of seeing people shine their light while I shine mine is what makes my heart so open and I love it. So anyone that's listening, please do ask yourself the question, what is it that truly lights up your heart? And Stace, as we close out? Any final words of wisdom and any general prompts you have in your heart?
So I love what Melissa said about, if we have it all, if we think we have it all figured out, we stop growing. That was a quote that I wrote down from the beginning of our conversation. And so I would encourage our listeners to just take a few moments and ask yourself, are you living by what you think, feel, and believe, or what someone else has told you is the quote, right way to live? So that would be the first thing. And then what are you doing to care for yourself now? How are you making yourself a priority? Because I feel like that goes back to such a foundational thing that we've been talking about, but that can be so challenging for so many. So what are you doing right now to make yourself a priority? I think this has been a very powerful episode. If you didn't listen to the first episode with Melissa, please go back and listen to it. We talk about our personal histories with Mormonism, and it's got a significant message there as well, just as important as this one.
Thank you. And actually, I wanted to go back to the words I know, because it kind of brought something up in me. I remember my mentor, Sidra, always saying the words I know are the most dangerous, because it's, as Melissa was saying, when you use those words, what you're saying is, I've got no more to learn. And what you're doing is you're closing yourself up to more insights, because maybe there's a certain level of knowing, but there's always deeper we can go. And I'm sure everyone's had that experience. So I remember that triggered something in me that I wanted to just share. And, what me and Stacey do, we love what we do. So if you are going through something, if we can support and help you through the mentorship, through Akashic Records, then please do reach out. You can book a free discovery call. You can choose to work with both of us or us individually. We love what we get to do. And, Melissa's such a great example of somebody that decided to go deep on who she is and shine her beautiful light. And as she said, there's still one more to do. It's kind of work in progress. There's no magic fix, but working with a mentor or a guide allows you to go deep on who you are and kind of accelerate your journey. Doesn't mean you can bypass the work, but it does mean that you can go deep and release some of the things you've been holding on to. And I could talk to the two of you for hours. Clearly we already have. This, I think, is probably one of the longest episodes we've recorded. But yeah, I've loved our conversation. I've loved the insights. Thank you both for inspiring me. Thank you both for being so open and sharing and being vulnerable and kind of shining your light to really help guide others. So thank you. I'm sending so much love and light out to both of you, to everyone that's listening. If you feel like you're going through something, I hope this episode in some way has inspired you. Please let us know. Send us a DM. Like I said, I include both Stacey and Melissa's details in the show notes. Reach out. We love getting those messages. I'm sending so much love and light out. And Melissa, I'm going to hand over to you to close us out.
Oh, well, thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure. This has been amazing, and sending you all so much love.
Thank you.
Thank you.